Woo! Okay, wait, hold on. Eric, you're right here. Have you ever heard of NumFOCUS?
Sorry?
Have you ever heard of NumFOCUS?
Sorry, no, I have not.
Shit. Eric, have you ever heard of NumFOCUS?
Yeah, you talk about it all the time.
Okay, what about you?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, all right. NumFOCUS? Have you ever heard of NumFOCUS?
Yes.
You?
Absolutely.
Have you ever heard of NumFOCUS?
No.
God damn. Woo! Okay, that's the afternoon rush. Get the energy up. Let's go. We've got okay, we got a couple talks coming up from organizations outside of the DeSci space. Oh boy. So it's going to be very interesting to get these perspectives. The first one's from me, so that doesn't really count because I'm also in the DeSci space. But it is coming from the perspective. It's the high elevation, man. Michael, can we make it a little bigger? Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so it's coming from the perspective of NumFOCUS. NumFOCUS is a fiscal sponsor for most of the scientific Python stack, including Julia, R, etc. So NumPy, Matplotlib, SciPy, if you've ever used any of these projects, you are being supported essentially by this organization. This is also sort of related to what is called the AI Alliance, and both of these organizations are starting to get fairly interested in what we're building in this ecosystem. The recovery, man, I used to play a lot of soccer too. So these are the organizations in the AI Alliance. They are an collection of 70 some odd nonprofits, corporations, universities, government agencies, et cetera, that are trying to make AI open source and keep it from being a proprietary system that kind of destroys us all. NumFOCUS is part of this alliance. And one thing we're very interested in, and this definitely relates to where we're at in this movement right now, is mapping the open source research software ecosystem. Because that ecosystem is massive. It's very unwieldy. It's very difficult for a researcher who is just entering the space to find the tools that will let them do their research that are also open source. And this is simply because there's too much software out there. So what we have started building is called the Map of Open Source Science. This is coming out of the Open Source Science Initiative out of NumFOCUS. This is largely me building this thing. It is using a platform called Kumu, which is a great visualizer, but it very much has its limits. So if anyone knows how to do visualizations, please let me know. Would love your help. So just to show you how this works really quick, I'm going to zoom through this so we can move on to Eric Schultes from the Go Fair Foundation, which is an absolutely fascinating organization with an amazing mission. But just to show you how this works, I'm going to show you what NumFOCUS is on this map, and it might break my computer. There we go. So NumFOCUS is down here. This is the entire open source ecosystem, open source research software ecosystem. NumFOCUS is this tiny little thing, and it's NumFOCUS, to be clear, is a very big thing, but in the ecosystem, it is a very tiny blip. All of these red dots are open source research software packages or projects and the ones that are connected to NumFOCUS are the fiscal, NumFOCUS is the fiscal sponsor of these projects. Now, those projects themselves are made up of packages. Packages to projects, there we go. So if we map those, again, we might break my computer. If I do, I'll just keep moving forward. We will start to see an ecosystem take shape. So that giant project over there is called Bioconductor. There's another great project called ITK, and they have been working on building decentralized journals for a very long time through something called the Insight Journal. So DeSci is not the first people trying to build these types of journals. And now we will try to map people. No, we're not. We're going to reduce the number of people on the screen. maybe. There we go. And we will now try to map people. People to projects and packages. While this is loading, the relation here to DeSci is we need to map our space. What this map can do for open source research software is show funders where they need to put money to make an impact in the ecosystem. That is a very big impact in itself, because there's a lot of these packages are completely open source. They're funded by grants, and the grantees want to know how impactful their work is. And if there's 50 packages or projects that work on data science, they're like, they don't want to remake NumPy. They want to make something that's used in machine learning or AI or something like that. So if we can map the DeSci space, similar to how we're starting to map the open source research software space, we can give folks entering the ecosystem a good idea of how they should enter, where they should put their work and their effort, and how they can get the best return for that effort. I'm probably going to cut this short because this is taking so long to render. There's over 50,000 nodes on here, probably over 100,000 connections at this point, and Kumu is built for like 200 nodes. So that is a rapid fire introduction to the map of open source science. It's an open working group, again, run out of NumFOCUS. It's 64 members, 22 organizations. We meet once a month. We have a working meeting once a week. We're also now starting to map the AI ecosystem with the AI Alliance. And you will very likely start to see some of this stuff propagate throughout some of the ecosystems wider than just a little Kumu page in the coming years. This thing has quite a bit of value to it. There we go. So very quickly, it rendered the green dots. This is the best thing I can do with my time. The green dots are the people that build these packages. So what this map does is it highlights that all of this stuff is not possible without the people behind it. Look how many of the green dots are versus everything else. So it reminds all the funders, all the government agencies that are now looking at open source as a solution to a lot of their issues. It reminds them that they're not a thing, they're collections of people building towards a mission. So we need to keep reminding them of that so that they fund people, not projects, and they focus on people over profit. So with that, I will stop, and I think we have Eric Schultes coming next. Yeah. Yeah. So this is very clearly a much larger project than I just explained. That is a big issue. Right now, it's a singular database. We are NumFOCUS who's building it. So we are connected to a lot of these communities. So we can go in and ask them directly, hey, who's working on this project, et cetera. We also have, I obviously scraped GitHub for contributors, but contributions, pull requests is not a measure of impact in anything. You could have the progenitor of a package submit one PR, and then you could have someone else change copyright 5,000 times. So we want to make it it's hard to sum up very quickly, but the basic idea is there's a big database that anyone can visualize however they want, and anyone can add anything to it at any time. And then the way that data is measured in terms of is important or not is through social graphs. But we have like UC Santa Cruz wants to map their little section of the open source research software ecosystem. And they could use our database to do that and just say, hey, only surface packages that are related to our ecosystem. And then, me, just the lowly open source contributor, could say, hey, I really like Python visualization tools. I only want to map those. So I could do that. And I would, be, as the user, be the chooser of what gets visualized whenever I'm using it. So we want to make it open to anyone to build on, anyone to use, and anyone to build a social graph on top of to indicate impact. Yeah.